There's probably only 10 people really that I speak to now. Obviously, those 10 are similar to me. So, of course, all 10 are now Bitcoiners. Like, it does actually make sense. But family members are a pain in the ass. They just don't listen.
They are indeed. That's It's very true. It's very true. It's a good way of thinking about it. Do you know what? I haven't got many friends. Okay, I take that back. So never look. I apologise.
Yeah, you would never have got to this part in the pod anyway. Literally no one is listening right now, so it's fine.
Right. Anyway, I better go and watch the last bit of Love Island.
So
I'm joking. It's not even on.
Get back to your pod, you fucking idiot. Okay then, so welcome to the Bitcoin Bros podcast, featuring two Bitcoin brothers. We're going to chat Bitcoin, life, and everything in between. I'm the big bro Gaz, and I know everything.
And I'm the little bro Tom, and I don't know everything. But what I do know is this is not financial advice. However, buy Bitcoin, we'll have fun staying poor. Welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome to the motherfucking show.
Welcome to Bitcoin.
And that was for little sis Claire. She was very unhappy with the fact that we don't intro our shows. We just kind of go into it. So there it is. Now we have an intro.
She's been quite offended, to be honest. Over the latest weeks that she doesn't get shout outs. So here we go. We've dedicated the first couple of minutes to her. And I like the way you're drinking tea too, by the way. This is what happens to you. You get old.
I'm feeling a bit under the weather. I've had 2 days in the last 2 months where I felt well, and one of those I drank whiskey on my last podcast, and then it's day 3 and I feel ill again, so I'm back on the tea. I can't do whiskey when I'm feeling down. The hangover's too bad.
Yeah, I've got a funny story for you. So Harry went to the shops. He'd been good. I think he went to go to the doctors, and as a reward, he'd go to Morrison's to get like a little magazine or whatever. And they went down the pick and mix aisle, and you can fill up the little cartons of pick and mix in the shops. And he carried it all the way back, got into his car seat and all that, all great. And then he undid his belt buckle, but as he pressed it undo when he got home, all the penny sweets fell out. So Holly picked them all up, put them back into the car, and she was like, "Oh, what a waste! They're all dirty now." He goes, "It's okay, mummy, I'll fix it." He come in, showed me, because I've got all my dirty sweets, I need to clean them. I didn't think anything else of it. And then the next minute, he got into the bathroom, he'd filled it up with water to clean them and brought it in like this. "I've cleaned them, Daddy." I was like, "Oh no." So these are the remnants of them. It's all of them, all the colours have mixed.
Well, technically, he's not wrong. They will be actually a little bit cleaner, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm eating them, so yeah.
It's a 5-second rule anyway.
It is, of course it is. There's only what's been in the car. I'm sure it was cleaned a couple of years ago.
Oh, you dropped it in the car as well, not even on the actual floor?
Yeah, he's in the car, yeah.
Oh, I definitely wouldn't count it. Yeah. That's like dropping it on the floor in your own house. Like, nah, there's no chance. I'm not eating those sweets off the floor.
Yeah, it's very true, very true.
So I'm way too tight for
that. You're tight, yeah. So Bitcoin's been a bit crazy since we've had a few weeks off, and we've seen it. I can't even remember what the price would have been when we last spoke. Must have been like probably low 30s, mid 30s, and we had a bit of a hike. We have all-time highs. Been pretty insane, isn't it? With a lot of money in that market right now. They went up to £48,000 on Bitcoin, and we corrected back down as predicted, about 20%, didn't it? But yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, and we've got some interesting topics, I think, today. Sort of delve a bit deeper, I think, because I've had a couple of people speaking to me recently, and I know you definitely have, about purchasing, and these are people I've already had previous conversation with, and they're a little bit more interested, so they may well be listening to this. And it's quite hard to give people conviction of why and how is this going to be the bullish price tag that you have at 5 million in how many years are you saying?
Or 5 to 10. It's actually my ultimate target is 10 million. 10 million in say 20 years, and a couple of million in 5.
Yeah, and people can't comprehend that because it's still a bubble in a lot of people's minds that obviously don't get it. And we've all been there, and I know there's a lot of people that we now know that are quite heavily involved in invested into it that didn't get it. And I think for me, and I think I even heard you say it on the 4Bs podcast about when the sort of the penny dropped for you, and it was learning the history of money, which is what sort of inspired me to this one, because I think we've always aimed at sort of the newbie level, and I think this is a really good point. We're obviously sponsored by Bitcoin Lessons, who actually taught me all about this, actually. Oh, the merch. It's there. How long have you had that?
Pretty much since the app was live, yeah. So I went to my first event last year wearing this. Yeah. It's just
quality.
I was been keeping it nice because it's meant to be for all my Bitcoin events, and I knew it got cancelled, and now I can't travel. So it's just like sod it. I'm just gonna start wearing it.
Yeah, so for the audio listeners, he's wearing a Bitcoin hoodie.
Bitcoin
which
Lessons.
Is, oh, yeah, of course. I missed the fundamental bit, which is downloadable from your local Apple store.
Or
anyway,
any app store.
Any app store.
Any of them.
Cool.
You need to make your own. I'm there somehow.
Yeah, so the history of money was the thing that really struck it all home for me, and it's something I obviously know everything about that you could know about money. It's it's pounds, it's pence. Years and years ago, it was whatever it was, sixpence and all that rubbish, penny farthing. And it wasn't until I think Bitcoin Lesson 4 where you go into the actual history of the money, and just like from my point of view, it's ultimately we use money in the sense of sterling, but in the olden days, and well, the fundamental thing of pounds and pence is a medium of exchange. And I think when you go back all the way to the beginning, pre like some of the things you've named here, it would have been we're just two blokes living in a farm or in a cave or whatever, and I want you to do something for me, and you want something from me. So I would give you some of, I don't know, my sheep, and you would give me, I don't know, some labor or your wife or something like that. And and then you obviously, as time goes on, so let's if you use an easy
It's only
example,
if
it's
you're
like
Welsh,
farm.
isn't it?
Yeah, we swap wives. Yeah, you have my sheep.
Well, and I give you you get some sheep, and I get your wife.
And eventually it breaks down to the point where you go, it's probably the easiest one is potatoes and like cow or something, and they're not directly comparable, are they? There's gonna be a hell of a lot of potatoes to match the equivalent value of a cow, and you can't chop a cow up, can you? So ultimately that's where you needed to break down the medium of exchange. And from my very basic remembrance of this, because I've looked at this years ago, you had sort of your shells, your rice stones, some beads, wasn't it, at one point? What was it called?
Agary beads.
Agri beads, yeah. And the one that I really liked was rice stones. And I may be jumping the gun here, but it was basically a fundamental. The way I've always picked it up is we decide that this is really useful and it's really expensive and there's not much of it around. So I'm mining it over in whatever country, out my hand, my feet, just digging bits and bits away. Really expensive, and we use it. I give you this, and you give me your product, and that's how we sort of pass things around, and that becomes our equivalent of sterling and pounds. But over time, we got wind of it in like the more wealthier part of the world, and we just come over and start just digging it up with our combine harvesters. Obviously not combine harvesters, but the equivalent all those years ago, and be able to sort of mine it really easily, which basically completely devalues it, which is ultimately inflation, isn't it? Hyperinflation, where it becomes so readily available, you no longer want this little bit because Joe over the road's got like tons of it, and then you have to basically something else becomes more valuable. Am I basically on point?
You are, yeah. And just to rewind right to the beginning, like the first set of scenarios you described is called barter, where there is no money. So literally, it's your goods and services. You just have to trade with everyone else, and that only scales to a certain degree. If you're living in a small village with, say, 20 to 100 people, that can work absolutely fine. You don't really need money in a small community like that, because everyone just decides that you're the baker, I'll be the hunter, this guy will fish, this people will build houses, and everyone just mucks in, and everyone kind of barters their time, their goods and services, and you come together as a community. It doesn't scale though. So now we've got a wholly connected world, and once you start connecting villages together, now suddenly essentially it's called the coincidence of wants. So you need a very high level of coincidence that what you want is also what I want, and in the trade. And so often the coincidence of wants falls down. So I want what you have, but you don't want what I've got, but you do want what this guy has. So what you need is a way of just going, look, let's just remove the goods and services one layer and have them just represented by a form of money. And now suddenly, provided we all agree these tokens have value, now it's like, right, 1 token equals a chicken, but 100 tokens equals a cow. Now it's nice and easy. If I've got a cow and you've got a chicken, that trade's very difficult to do. And you might not even want my cow. So what I can do is sell my cow to someone else, get my 100 tokens, then turn up with you, give you 1 of my tokens, and you're happy to give me your chicken. That's now, you've solved the coincidence of wants by bringing in money, removing barter, putting in money, and that now scales globally. So what humans did when they first kind of got out of barter is they invented all types of forms of money. And typically these forms of money, they have to be scarce, so you can't be able to get loads of them. If you just picked a random rock, for example, or a tree or some leaves, then it doesn't make sense, because I can just go and get infinite rocks, infinite leaves. However, what humans picked was very rare shells. They picked huge rocks called rhinestones. And the reason why rhinestones worked was because they're huge, like limestone rocks on Yap Island, where this was the only form of currency, and it's the only place that used rhinestones. Those rocks and the rhinestones didn't exist on the island. They existed on an island a couple of miles away, and it was a big effort to sail across that on their canoes, dig up one of these stones and bring it back. And it was literally, people would risk their life, and it would be a thing they would do once a year to try and bring one back. So this is why that stone had value. If they lived on the other island where the stones were everywhere, it wouldn't have been a form of money, because if you're going to value like 3 houses as a stone, well, I can just go and dig another rock up, go, there you go, I own your house now. It's just straight away, you haven't got a sound money. So but every single form of money, as we've evolved, each kind of civilization came of their own, and one by one, kind of the future of technology and human beings just coming and traveling into different societies, all these very basic forms of money got hyperinflated through no fault of their own, just for the fact that, yeah, it's scarce in your community, but yeah, I can go to this island. If I've got a bigger ship than you and I've got dynamite and you've just got a canoe and a pickaxe, you can only get 1 stone a year. If I rock up with a big ship, which is exactly what happened on Yap Island, I can blow the whole island up, take all the rocks and just bring it to Yap Island and buy everything. And essentially you steal the entire generational wealth of an entire community, which is devastating to the people that end up getting hyperinflated and give away their goods and services for essentially worthless hyperinflated money. They end up with nothing. And in every single example of money, it's great for as long as it's great, and then it gets hyperinflated and then it's worth 0. And whoever's holding it last loses everything. So the quicker you get out of the old form of money and into the new means you manage to maintain as much of your wealth as possible. And if anything, if you can get in very early, you actually do better off than you were before. You could be relatively poor in the old system, but if you spot the new one early enough, you can get in, and there's huge price discovery in every single time a new form of money is invented. There's a whole period of very high volatility where no one really knows what to value a thing at. And then once they do find it, it takes probably a decade or 2 to people to kind of agree roughly what this new form of money is worth. And then it's stable, typically for around 50 to 100 years is the length of time that a currency will stay until it gets replaced by something else. I think you're muted.
Ah, that's interesting. So I muted my headset and it wasn't saying I was muted, but so okay, and yeah, I'm unmuted now. Yeah, let's bring it into the modern day then. So in our generation, we've seen pennies, obviously silver and gold, I guess, isn't it? I don't know what a pound made of. I guess it's gold, is it? Don't know. What's that made of?
What's what made of?
A pound.
A pound is made of worthless metal, yeah. It's like tungsten or
it is tungsten, right? Fair enough.
something like that.
So if you think, so just in our lifetime, if we try and apply that example, copper, to be fair, actually, we're on a gold standard. So the gold was basically the thing we wanted to give to each other, but then we got all the gold hodled away by ultimately the governments and the banks, didn't they? And they gave us IOUs. Stolen, yeah. Which actually we can come back to that as well about the stolen bit. So we ended up putting derivatives, which is sort of fractions of. So instead of giving a gold bar across, that's the equivalent of paying a cow for a lollipop, isn't it? It's too big the value, so you have to break it down. We made pounds, 10 pence and pennies, didn't we? But even in our time, we've seen pennies become redundant, haven't we?
Yeah, every single generation sees the lowest form of money become redundant. Every single generation, because every 15 years, as we know, the price of money halves. So it doesn't make sense. So yeah, we're seeing it now. I used to be able to actually buy a penny sweet with a penny. Now a penny sweet is near a 10p. So there you go. That's a 10x. So pennies are literally completely worthless. And yeah, and they devalued so much that even though they make pennies and some of the other coins actually with essentially worthless metal, the value of the penny and the 2p actually declined by so much that the metal that was supposed to be worthless ended up being worth more. So I remember this about 10, 20 years ago. People were hoarding all these pennies, melting them down, and then selling them as the raw metal, even though they were supposed to be worthless. And what they realized is that they had to make them smaller and thinner because there was too much metal in a penny that was the actual metal was worth more than the penny. So they had to devalue or like shave off the more metal in the penny because the value of the penny had gone down by so much.
Well, you think back to the old 50p, that was massive, wasn't it?
Yeah, they made them all smaller and thinner.
Yeah, and we thought they looked more stylish. But in reality,
the 50p like still had enough value more than the metal. Just
remember how fat they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're probably right. That probably didn't have less value than the silver made from it. But yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because obviously copper's got quite a lot of value because people go around taking little copper things off taps and radiators and stuff because they're worth something, aren't they?
Yeah, copper pipes and all sorts. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I don't think it's copper anymore. It's some weird version of it that if you melt it down, you can't make copper pipes out of it because that's what people were doing.
Right, I see. So going back to what you were saying, so I remember hearing about this quite a long time ago about basically everyone used to have their own gold stash, didn't they? And then I think, was it the US did it first? I can't remember who it was, but someone basically they made it illegal to hold your own gold, and it was a governmental sort of implementation where they said we need to hold your gold, and what in return we'll give you this price. And I'm assuming that price was probably a little bit more than the common value of that gold bar or that gold derivative, and they gave everyone that money at that point. But obviously, if it was in the middle of the gold rush, it was always going to be cheaper now than it's going to be in the future, especially when they make it completely scarce. Yeah. And then the whole IOU, which is ultimately paper, is what we use today. We have a £5 sterling note and a £10 to £20. Even the £5 sterling note's almost gone bust, doesn't it? If you think about it, they're very infrequent. I know paper's not worth more than a fiver, but it's still weird that they got rid of the fiver almost, didn't they? Almost made that redundant out of ATMs. But yeah, ultimately that holds a value of what the gold should be until, was it the 70s, when the gold that was sort of backing the IOUs didn't marry up, and there was more IOUs than there was gold stores behind it, which is ultimately, I can't believe that was the case, 50 years ago, which goes back to what you said about currency only staying stable for, what did you say, 50 to 100 years?
Yeah, so
which then means,
we're pretty much nearly 100 years in now of being on because in Britain, we did it in 1914 for World War One. So we're over 100 years in on the fiat standard now. And the whole world is 50 years in of being fully on the fiat standard. Because before that, we're on the gold standard, which is 1 for 1. But it was a much better time when we were on the gold standard because we had sound money. There was still inflation, but it was only 2 to 5%. So it was like 500 years ago that we had the gold rush, where everyone ran out and to get the gold and sieve all the rivers. We pretty much found the value of gold within 50 years. So then the value of gold stayed very consistent. It just went up by 2 or 5% a year. So it's been very boring for long periods of time, which is why people would work all their life. They would earn gold, they would hoard it in their homes, and that'll be with their retirement. There would be no pensions. Pensions are a new invention designed by government to steal your wealth and control you. People could retire whenever they wanted back in the day. However much gold that you earned, however successful you were, however much inheritance you'd got, you could just go, I'm done, I'm out. Oh, and how much tax are you going to pay on your pension? 0, mate. I've already paid it. And the gold that I've got under my bed, no one even knows about that, because as far as the government is concerned, I may have spent all my wages. So I have this hoard of money. I'm going to continue and just live a happy life. And people were very low time preference. Saving was just default. People save for their retirement. And then people also then made sure they had enough money to give down to their kids. And it was all 100% in their control. It was a very good way of living. Once they stole the gold off everyone, so they made it illegal to hold more than an ounce of gold, because they realized they were missing out on loads of tax revenue, and people were retiring too early. And then other people, the young people, were getting too much of a good start. This isn't good. This is going to make a very happy and content population. And governments do not want happy, content populations, because that means they have far too much time to think and realize how corrupt their government is and how little they are getting for the taxes they are still paying. And those types of populations rise up and overthrow governments. So they need to make them back being poor, fearful, and skint. So that's what they did. They basically went, right, this isn't enough for this. The people are getting too powerful. Every government around the land basically issued a law that says over 1 ounce of gold, it's illegal to hold that. You have to entrust to banks. We're doing this for your benefit because we've seen a real big rise in burglaries of people losing their gold. So we're protecting you. We will look after your gold on your behalf for free. But don't worry, we'll give you IOUs back. And these notes are 1 to 1. So if you give us £1 of gold, you have £1 note in your hand, and you can go off in it anytime, come back to the bank, give us that £1 note, and we'll give you £1 of gold back. We're good for it. Until they weren't, they decided, you know what? No, you can never get your gold back. It is now property of the government. You can purely use your paper notes and your worthless bits of metal coins. We're keeping it. And then, in 1914 in the UK and in 1971 in the US were the final ones to come off the gold standard. They decided to fractionally reserve the fiat against gold, which essentially means instead of fiat matching 1 to 1, they started going, we just need to print 20% more fiat than we do have gold. So now suddenly it's a 1.2 match to 1. And then they went, because at the time in the UK, at least, it was, we need to fight the Nazis. So we need more money. We haven't got enough money to pay our soldiers to build bombs and to basically fight the Nazis and win the war. So they went, look, as a one-off, we'll just start printing extra money. And by printing money, we are devaluing your savings and we're devaluing your wages. But it's worthwhile because the world's going to end if we lose World War I. So the people largely voted for it and went, okay, fine, as a one-off, do it. And that was over 100 years ago in the UK now, and they never stopped doing it. Every successive government that came in continued to print more and more fiat money. And now there is virtually no gold sat behind it. So instead of being 1 to 1, it's infinity to 0. There's basically infinite fiat in the world, because at any point they can just print more of it, and there's no gold sitting behind it. So now we are literally using, well, we are actually living in the times of complete hyperinflation. And in my view, what we are basically in, if we were on Yap Island right now, the boat is coming towards us. It has all the rhinestones on it. The American guy has come with his dynamite and his big ship, and he's bringing all the rhinestones over, and he's basically unloading them onto the shore. And we're all sat around going, that looks really bad. But at the moment, my neighbors still accept a bit of rhinestone for their cow. So I think it's fine. I don't think that's not a problem. And also the guys that are coming with the rhinestones are also telling me it won't be a problem. So why would I think there's a problem? Yeah. And then you've got to straight away think, well, hold on, your neighbor is just as brainwashed as you are, because this money has been good for so long. You're all thinking, why would it change now? So you're like completely embedded in that form of money. And then the people that are bringing all the new money into on shore, of course they want it to be worth something. If they told you, no, we're hyperinflating your currency, you would all run away and not exchange the goods and services, which is exactly what's happening with the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve in America. They are printing shit tons of money, and they're all turning around to the people going, don't worry, this is completely fine. Those Bitcoiners are crazy. Don't listen to them. And it's like, that's like saying to the guy coming off the ship, oh, I'm standing there going, don't accept his stones. You need to move to a gold standard now. Your money is bad. And a lot of them just going, no, you're talking nonsense. Keep your gold. I'm going to go do a deal with this guy with the rhinestones. And you're going, trying to help you. And we're trying to grab as many people as we can to go, don't do this deal. We can switch to gold now. But in our version now, 500 years on, it's stop accepting fiat. Convert your fiat now into Bitcoin before it's too late.
Yeah, and a few points that you were talking about throughout that. I actually absolutely get the government's idea of not giving young, intelligent, like aspirational, passionate people too much money to not have to work. Because look who we have in front of us. It's exactly what happened to you, isn't it? Because when you were working, and like when I'm working now, there's only so much part of the day I can actually think about Bitcoin and the life that I'll live, because I've got quite a highly stressful, rushed job that I'm doing. So it is absolutely true. You give the people with free time, the people that just like to go for little meandering walks and pick a newspaper up at 7 o'clock in the morning and play a bit of golf and just have holidays and relax. They have no intention, because they've worked all their life and they're just happy their body's a bit tired. They just want to chill out and relax. They don't want to change the world. These young people that want to climb the business ladder and become CEOs and chief execs and managers of the world, or prime ministers, lawyers, all the high end areas. If you give them too much money, they're pretty potentially quite toxic to the what's it called, the normal way of living. There is a nice saying for that. Basically the status quo. That's the word I'm looking for. Talking status quo, Dad loves that. And another point I was going to ask about is, it brings back. Unlucky if you're not watching that. It brings back the question about. I know that every country has a different currency, pretty much. Well, they don't, but majority of them do. It's never 1 for 1, is it? And like when you said 1.2 to 1 for the 20% the inflation at the World War, and that does make sense. It absolutely does. It's a we all club together. We all going to devalue everything that we own. However, it's for the greater good. But no current country currency is 1 for 1, is it?
No,
You go to an exchange, nothing is. So does that mean one of them is the sort of the 1 for 1 gold, and then everything else is derivative of it? So
they're all just bollocks. They're all just complete bollocks, and it's just.
No, what I mean is though, they were all at one point would have been 1 for 1, wouldn't they? With gold standard being the backing, but slowly as each one went off the gold standard, well, not off it, they slid away slowly. Is that why there's different scales? Like obviously Zimbabwe, for example, they completely went haywire, didn't they? And that was a lot of governmental political sort of corruption, and the $1 billion note was released with paper being worth more. That's obviously happened now, but what we're saying and what you all just said then, in the next couple of years, well, 10, 15 years probably, 20 years, hyperinflation will hit, and it will be the same equivalent here. The 50 quid bill is probably not that rare, is not as rare as it used to be, and before you know it, will a £100 note come out? Probably not, actually, because everything will be digital, thinking about it. So we're probably never going to see the Zimbabwe $1 billion note, because you won't need to. But if we did keep
trying to phase it out as well, trying to phase cash out completely, but that's for a different
so you
reason.
it is, but you wouldn't see it either, would you?
No.
If you think about it, it's a lot more stealth if it's not done via what you hold in your wallet, because we're all used to going, oh yeah, you carry about 25, 30 quid in your pocket, because that's a safe amount to carry, isn't it? Anything more, I know you would a bit more, but if you're going night out, 50 quid, that's quite a lot, and you want to be careful. You would never carry 300 quid in your wallet. That's a bit too much, isn't it? But if we were walking around in 10 years time and the hyperinflation's happening, you'd probably find it'd be a tenner, 15, 20 quid a pint. So you put 300 quid's probably not unreasonable, is it?
No.
But that's direct comparison, isn't it?
Yeah, and then that's the same as if you go back 100 years, our grandparents wouldn't have walked around with 30 quid in their pocket. That would have seemed insane. They'd have walked around with £2. But inflation happened. So it's all the same amount, right? All we're walking around with is essentially, well, how much does 10 drinks in a taxi cost? That's what we're walking around with. And 100 years ago, that would have been £2. Now it's nearly 100. And if we fast forward another 20 years, it's going to be 300, 500. And none of these numbers will sound silly at the time. But yeah, we're getting closer and closer to hyperinflation. They lie about inflation all the time. So I think we're roughly at about 25% inflation every year at the moment. And the definition of hyperinflation is going up by 50% every month. So that is when the currency is essentially worthless. Once you enter that, it's worthless. People refuse to be paid in it and will refuse to accept it as payment for anything. And that's when complete chaos hits. So over the last 50 years, we've gone from very steady inflation from 2%. We're now at 25. It's not going to take too much longer because these graphs, they all start off slow and then they go parabolic. So we've started the parabolic little graph now. So before you know it, we are going to be at 1,000% inflation in a year. And who knows how long it's going to take? I think it genuinely could be anything from 6 months to 10 years. It could happen that quick. Wow. Because they have lost complete control. And all it takes is it's the belief system. So if everyone just clicked and believed what we were saying right now and realized how much their money is being stolen, and everyone in the UK converted their money into Bitcoin, it happens today. We stop the scam today because no one will accept pounds. And the majority of people that accept pounds are the people in the UK. The only reason it's holding its value because people in the UK still accept it as payment for their time, and they go out and trade pounds for other goods. So if more people were like me and have converted 98% of your net worth into a different form of money, i.e. Bitcoin, if everybody did that, it's over. We end the scam today.
Oh, yeah, it's quite powerful. I think one of the biggest flaws for me of what they're doing regarding the inflation, because you can really hide inflation really well. Like I think we touched on it in previous weeks, when if I buy off you, I don't know, let's say a packet of rice, you could you could increase the price by, like, I don't know, 10p, so a nominal number, you wouldn't notice it, but you could decrease the weight of it by, say, 10%. There you go, you get your sort of your 20% flux.
That's
I don't notice that.
Shrinkflation. There's
shrinkflation, yeah.
There's inflation on price and there's shrinkflation on the size of the goods that you're getting.
Interesting. Because we'd see that all the time. And things like chocolate bars, for example. A Mars bar was 30p, wasn't it? It's now 75p or something for a normal sized Mars bar. So what they've done is they've invented like snack size sharers. Why are they bringing those out now? Why didn't we have them when we were kids? You'd never dream of getting a big bag of minstrels. But what they've done is they've increased the size of it so they can extremely increase the price. And because we've got nothing to compare it to, we haven't got a childhood where we had sharer packs of minstrels. You can't compare it. So it sort of confuses you a bit. But what I do think is petrol. I think that is the thing is going to really show everyone everything, because I think if they could keep that pretty stable, I think, because that's the one thing you can't, when you're in Ibiza and there's a thermometer on all the blooming McDonald's signs, you can always see how hot it is. You remember how blooming hot it is, but yeah, it's 40 degrees. If there wasn't any thermometer, you just think it's pretty hot. You wouldn't really associate a number with it. But you see it's 40 degrees, you think, oh, I need to have a nap, I'm going to get sunstroke. It's the same thing. Every street you go on, there's a petrol station and there's a price on it. And now I go to my Morrison's up there, and that service station prices from it's from a year ago, and 6 months ago, it's almost double what it was when we were in lockdown. It's it's coming up to 150p now for diesel, and that's just insane. And we can all see a direct correlation. Well, if it costs more money for me to top up my car to go to work, that means I'm getting less now when I get to work. But it also means Mr. Delivery Driver is going to be paying more for his driving. Guess what? That's going to have a knock-on effect all the way, and all the supermarket staff have to pay more, so we have to increase their wage. It's so blatantly obvious, it's smacking us in the face. And I think that is the one area where even the dunces that don't want to see this are going to see it.
No. The problem is, though, the government are smart, so they get ahead of these things. And so straight away they go, all right, the price of petrol's going up, and everyone knows the price of petrol. And it's like you said, it's freaking advertised everywhere. Whereas the price of a chicken or whatever is much less known. Like, how much does a chicken cost? I honestly don't know. So it goes from 250 to £3. It's kind of hidden. You go, that's technically gone up by, would it be like 10, 15% there? But it's hidden. No one is like, the price of a chicken isn't well known, whereas the price of a litre of petrol absolutely is. So they get ahead of it. So they got all their excuses. Number one, they say it's transitory. So it's a temporary increase, number one. Then they say it's because of a supply shortage. We've been in the middle of a pandemic, so the supply is low. And it's just lie after lie after lie. And all that really happens is, the price of petrol has been going up very consistently, 5 or 10%, pretty much every year in my lifetime. When I first started filling up with petrol, it was less than £1. Now it's at 150. It was down at 70 or 80p, I think, when I was a kid. So it's going crazy high, but they get ahead of it. So when you ask the standard person, and again, when I sometimes debate these people on Twitter, they come back with the standard government arguments that it's temporary, and if anything, what they need to do to fix it, which is always hilarious, especially if you're a socialist, and the government answer to getting the price of petrol down is let us print more money so we can lube up the supply chain again, fix everything, fix that infrastructure, and the price will come down. It's just kind of hilarious that the reason why the petrol's gone up by so much because you devalued the money. What's your solution to bring it down? Print more money. And people lap it up and go, yeah. Because their reason for why the price went up wasn't printing money. It was supply shortages, a pandemic, and it's transitory, right? It's just temporary. So just let us fix stuff and everything will be fine. Whereas if you ask a Bitcoiner, it's like, no, they caused the problem and they're asking, give them more money and they'll fix the problem. The same thing that caused the problem in the first place. You're like, this is literally the definition of insanity. Like doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. But what are we doing? It's why Bitcoiners just lose their freaking world to live. And it's why we just snap occasionally, just go, fuck off, have fun staying poor, I'm out.
Well, it's funny as well because I think I was with Dad the other day and he was like, yeah, it wasn't that. I remember when I was buying a gallon for X, Y, and Z pence. So my prediction is by 2025, you won't buy a litre of petrol, you'll buy a half, and it'll be called the half, and it'll be at 80p. Or, I don't know, that'll be too cheap, £1.20. And be like, there's only 120 for it. You just, it takes quite a lot of halves, and we just get annulled to a half, and they just decrease the volume of it, and it'd be blatantly obvious initially. They might even slash it like proper price, like even make it a bit cheaper.
Yeah, I honestly do think all they need to do is every time the price goes up, they need to be ahead of it with excuses. So the initial outrage is suppressed, and then just leave it at that price for a little bit. Everyone just becomes accustomed to it, and then in another couple of years, you just hike it another 20 or 30%, get ahead of it again, and go, don't worry, another disaster just happened, another crisis. it's transitory. Don't worry. Let's print more money and we'll fix it. Everyone forgets that they're angry about that thing again, gets used to the fact that price is now £2 a litre. And then this carries on. Like they've literally done this since it was like 1 penny a litre all the way up to 150. It's the same thing over and over again. And it's literally, it's like all the thing, right? It's like the classic headlines, the classic way of getting over drama and getting over scandal. The best way for someone to forget your scandal is to create another scandal. And what ends up being is you're just yesterday's fish and chip paper. Yeah, everyone's outraged and hates you today, but if someone else does something bad tomorrow, now they're the target, and everyone forgets you even exist. So that's what they do with money, and that's what they do with inflation. It's just everyone's outraged, got to calm them down, and then everyone forgets. And once they've forgotten, it's all like, yeah, everyone's used to 150 now. You're looking around like no one's upset now. Everyone's just built their life up to afford that. That's when they ump it up to £2, and there'll always be a reason.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's insane because it is costing so much now, and they're increasing the standard wage, aren't they, to like a tenner. So obviously that gets the majority of the vote as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I tweeted about that. They upped the minimum wage by 6% from like £8.90 to like £9.50. So that's a 6% rise. So petrol's gone up by 25%. And the cost of living's gone up by about 25%. So in real terms, and the politicians were cheering each other. It looked like they were doing a Martin Luther King speech, where they were like freeing a load of poor people from poverty, going, look, we're giving them £9.50 instead of £8.91 minimum wage. And I was just listening to this. It was one of the few times I had the radio on. I think it was previously on the football. I switched it on, and the news was on. I couldn't switch it off fast enough. And it was a clip from this politician speaking. And he enraged me so much because he was so freaking self-congratulatory, where everyone was cheering around him. We're freeing up the poor people. And in reality, they're just stealing yet another 18% from the poorest. Because again, like inflation always hits the poorest first. Like if you're a millionaire and the cost of living goes up by 25%, you don't care. Yeah, you haven't got a mortgage. You haven't got any real bills. Like your utility bills and your food and all that type of stuff goes up by 25%, but you don't give a shit because that's just like pocket money for you. Yeah, you live in millionaire land where it's houses and cars, and in reality, where you make your money is in the stock market and in property. That all boomed by 20 to 50%. So overall, as a millionaire or billionaire, you're significantly richer, even though your bills have gone up by 25%, but that represents 0.01% of your wealth. Whereas for the poorest, they don't have any investments, they don't own any property, they live month to month, and they only had a spare, say, £200 each month to treat themselves. That £200 goes down by 25%. There's yet another 50 being eaten away. And that's just real life stuff, right? And now suddenly the kids have to go hungry on something. They can't have the next toy. The holiday is more harder to save for. And that's why it just makes me like really angry. And I just have to switch the radio off because listening to their lies just triggers me way too much. I know it's happening. And all we can do is just go, I can't beat their system by playing their game. We can only beat them by playing a different game, which is buying Bitcoin, and just try and bring as many people along for the ride as we can. Because the more people that play in the fiat system, the poorer they're going to get. And it's just really sad to see it happening.
It is sad because you're absolutely right. I was just thinking because they've also cut a bit of the benefit thing, haven't they? The 20p tax or whatever it is, the 20p off every quid they're no longer getting. So that's going to obviously upset a lot of the benefit people. I wonder if they're going to bring that back in next budget to then reignite the whole generation just back to what it is now. And all them lot will be like, obviously you'd be buzzing, wouldn't you?
It's hilarious. They give a tax cut in one area and a little minimum wage increase in another. And then they just inflate the money by 25%, stealing it all back plus some. Yeah, they want to be cheered. It's literally like me walking up to you and giving you 5 penny sweets and then taking a roast chicken out your fridge and then going, you better thank me for those sweets. No, you stole a chicken. Like, there was not a fair trade, dickhead. And it's like, no, we're only counting how many sweets you've got. You have more sweets today. Like, Yeah, but overall, I'm poor, dickhead. And it's so easy to fool people, right? It's literally like the magician's trick. You're like, watch this hand, whilst they steal, and they're doing the trick under the table. And that's what
Even under the table. It's not under the table. They're waving to you, and they just go, "Thank you."
Yeah,
but you're still
they
looking
are.
at that.
Yeah, they
We can all
pretty
see
much,
it. We can all see it, but we just choose to ignore that hand because it's. You know, when you said about the rice stone thing, you can see everyone unloading on the shore. It's scary though, isn't it? Because what our whole lives we've listened to teachers, I guess politicians to an extent, health advisors, parents, and your next door neighbours type, your public, your peers. We all listen to them. We all discuss things. If they're all saying it's normal, it's fine, blah blah blah, why would you go against the grain? Because it's the normal. This is what you should think, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And
How
we're
can you?
programmed to follow the crowd and fit in.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. I remember you posted something years ago, and it was a whole field on a hill, and they're all just sat there, and then one person gets down, starts dancing, and you can see everyone's going bell end, and then someone else goes up there and starts dancing with them. You're thinking, oh God, what the hell are they doing? 3 people go there, then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then before you know it, you're the bell end still sat there because you're not dancing, and it's kind of that movement that we're seeing, isn't it? And we're still in the stage where there's just 2 people dancing down there, isn't it?
Yeah,
Where
most people are looking at them going, yeah, it's yeah, they look silly.
Yeah,
I think the thing you got to factor in, right, is the propaganda from the top, getting the kids into school, and also getting women into work. These were all things that were pitched as we're helping and giving equality, which is essentially, oh, we'll give you free education, and therefore, because your kids are in school, now the women can all go to work. All this was designed to do was, number one, indoctrinate the kids, learning basically how to be a wage slave. They didn't get taught anything useful about how to manage money, the history of money, how to do investing, nothing, absolutely nothing. What's a pension? All these types of things. None of that gets taught in school. The only thing you get taught is how to memorize information and regurgitate it, which is great if you want to just be a lawyer, just be an office worker or answer the phone. Yeah, they're teaching you just to be a drone. That's all education teaches you. And then you've got what used to happen is the dad would go out to work in the traditional original family, and the women would stay home and actually teach the kids. And the dad would come home early quite often and also help in the education of children. Kind of state-run education is still a relatively new concept that's only existed for the last 100 years or so. It's very normal now just to cart your kids off to minimum wage employees and expect them to teach them everything they need to know about the working world. It's completely stupid to even assume they can do any of that, especially in big classes of 30, 40, 50, where these people are vastly underpaid and overworked, and the kids are just going in there. What the hell is this nonsense? Everyone asked that question in their brain, didn't they? Why am I learning about longshore drift? Why am I learning about Pythagoras' theorem? I don't get it. I don't want to do this with my life. I might want to fix cars. I might want to be an investor. Like, I've seen people on TV. I want to be an actor. I want to be a footballer. You don't get taught any of this shit in school. You get taught to be boring. You get taught to have your aspirations stamped out of you, where being a wage slave and earning a good living until you die and then get a pension, that is what the dream is of human beings. And by putting the mum and dad to work and devaluing their wages, essentially what that teaches them to do is, you ain't got time to educate your kids. You get home, you're tired in the evening. All you want to kind of do, feed them and put them to bed, and freaking try and get an hour to yourself in the evening where you watch some stupid Love Island until you get to do it all over again.
You just basically highlighted my life.
Exactly. And nearly everybody is living the same life. If we rewind 100 or 200 years, it would be so different. Everyone would have their own personality. Everyone is the same fucking person now, which is why I call everyone drones. They all do a job they hate. They buy shit they don't like to impress people they don't like. They have no time. They largely don't like their kids. Try and spend as little time with them as possible, even though to everyone else they say they're the best thing that ever happened to them. And they just can't wait until they grow up and move out and they can retire. And apparently then once you're retired, you enjoy life. Whereas in reality, you're probably ill. You might not even live to retirement. And yeah, and by then your kids probably hate you. You have no money, and all you're full of is regret for the fact you didn't live your life when you were young. And when you really look through all these things, it's not a lot of people's fault, because the way money is being inflated away from most people is the average wage does not let you live much of a life different to that. You have to have the mum and the dad have to go to work to be able to support a family with a house and children. And that we should be very, very angry about this, and we should be forcing change and forcing ourselves out from a fiat standard. And the great thing is, at the moment, if you are in that family where you have no time, the mum and dad are both working, you've got kids, you've got mortgages, and you've got a mortgage that ends when you're 55 to 65, then we're still in price discovery of the new form of money. You can get out. So just buy Bitcoin and you'll be fine. Or deny it and fight your way in the game. I watched The Matrix the other night, and Morpheus was walking down the street with Neo, and he's like, why don't we tell everyone? Why don't we just tell everyone that we're living in the Matrix and this whole thing is a scam? And Morpheus just turns to him and goes, not everyone else is ready to be awoken. And if anything, they are so brainwashed by their current system that they will fight to stay in. So those people you just have to leave behind. Like they'll bring you down. And so you just have to awaken the people that are receptive to new information and let them come on board. And then you try and cater to them and help them in their journey. Other people will fight to stay in. They're completely brainwashed, and you go, you know what, fine. You're going down with the ship. And you don't want to be close to those types of people, because it's when it all gets nasty, they're going to be the first people smashing on your door, trying to steal stuff out your fridge and stuff. So stay away from those people.
Yeah, I think we can move to the next thing quite nicely from that. It's I saw a poll on Twitter today, and it was, who do you think the first Fortune 500 CEO is going to be to receive wage in Bitcoin? And the obvious answer is probably Sailor, isn't it? However, he probably doesn't really count. I think it's going to be someone that doesn't own all the company, and the company doesn't already own those Bitcoin. So I know there's the mayor of Miami, I think, is having his first 3 paychecks in Bitcoin, which
is the mayor of New York. That is.
Is it New York? Is it? Okay.
Well, it's actually both of them. The mayor of Miami last week said he's taking his next paycheck in Bitcoin, and then today the new mayor of New York is taking his first 3 paychecks in Bitcoin.
So isn't that that's alarming, isn't it?
Exactly. When you're, well, the thing is that these guys get it. They're young politicians. They understand fiat's broken, but they're slightly doing it for political gain here. They're slightly doing it as a virtue signal. But yeah, it's a massive shift, right?
It's a massive virtue signal, and it's gonna resound across the whole of the world. It's not. This isn't El Salvador doing it. This is America.
What I mean by a virtue signal, though, is that virtue signals don't mean anything.
Okay, sorry.
It's still like, what's your net worth in? Anyone could, like me taking 1 month's salary in Bitcoin just means he could have just taken, I don't know what he gets paid a month. It's probably like 10 grand or something. So he could just bought 10 grand of Bitcoin. That's not material. It's not,
right.
He's probably worth millions, right? So he's got 0.01% of his net wealth in Bitcoin. So until the mayor of Miami and the mayor of New York, number one, say, I'm taking all my paychecks in Bitcoin. And by the way, all my investments and savings are also in Bitcoin. Now that's big. That's not a virtue signal. That's a real sign of intent. Taking 1 or 2 months of their wages in Bitcoin is that's them trying to win some votes, trying to win the Bitcoin vote. So it's a good step, but it could just be total bollocks at this point.
Okay, fair enough. That's an interesting take on that. The thing I see it as it's quite good PR though, isn't it? And it's again a bit of positivity opposed to what you generally see is a lot of negative stuff chucked around to try and, I guess it is the whole fighting you off, isn't it, thing. And talking about The Matrix, it's interesting because I haven't watched that film for so many years, and I was really young when I think it came out. I'll have to rewatch that, but it does make sense when they're in the Matrix, you're walking down, and this is exactly right. You can't tell everyone because everyone likes to think they like change. Because as I had the conversation today, and they were saying, oh, now there's a few new people, it's going to be a lot of change. Oh, I love change. I was thinking, pretty certain I told you a few years ago about Bitcoin and you didn't like change then. So really it's saying I like change, but change is effort, change is scary, change is potentially you can fail on change, can't you?
Exactly. Change is terrifying. Like, yeah, it's just whether you embrace it and you roll with the punches. But I don't like change. My entire job was a strategy guy that was at the forefront of technology. I had to come up with all the ideas that led the company. I didn't like change. When someone new came in, when someone came in from the outside and then suddenly had some new ideas and started like going, oh, your team of these people, I reckon you should mix it up and do this or do that or do that. My instant reaction was just no, go away. Who are you, fucking stranger? And obviously, like my CEO ended up leaving, and the new one comes in. I hated it. They're like, no, the guy's fresh. He's full of new ideas. I didn't like it. I'm like, I like the guy that was here before. We had a relationship. We had 10 years of history. Like the new guy was great, and I could have still built a relationship with him, and still stayed there for 2 years afterwards. But I didn't like it, and you're just lying if you say you like change. Like no one likes it. It's hard to, and especially when it comes to money, it's one of the hardest things to overcome or any type of investment really, because when someone comes to you and goes, oh, this is the next big thing, and if anything, your instant reaction of I don't believe you is correct. That's a good natural response. But now it should be like, why don't I believe him? Let's start asking some questions and let's work down this. And eventually what you'll get to with a Bitcoiner is you run out of questions and they've answered everything. And there's just a huge pile of evidence now that suggests the money that you're holding is a worthless piece of shit. And there's a load of evidence over here that says Bitcoin is the best form of money that's ever been invented. And now if you look at that and still go, nah, then, but most people never get there. Most people just start refusing and just denying information at the point where you just start.
That's what I was going to say. People generally, if you can get to the point of people actually listening, that's a massive step. And that step takes a long time if you mention it. But the word Bitcoin now, to people that know me that have never listened to it, they are aware of it now and they do talk to me about it and they bring it up in conversation. Whilst it might still be a bit slanderous, generally they're like watching the price going, it's quite a bit. You must have quite a lot of money now. Like, did you buy any? No. Oh, well, you haven't then, have you? And it's sad, and it is sad because you think you could have brought so many people along with you, and you've tried, but you can only take the horse to water, can't you? And it's like we say. I really like the analogy we've used numerous times in there about the Titanic. Everyone's on it, and we're on the little speedboat. And the thing is, the speedboat isn't very good. It does cock out a little bit, and it does the rotor's a bit dodgy, and the waves are pretty big. And to be honest, since we started this pod, you think about what our net gain and losses are. It's insane, isn't it? When you think it's gone from what it was like 2.5 grand, 3 grand, wasn't it? Only a year and a half or 2 years ago, it went up to 48, and they went down to went to 45 or 7, didn't it? 47. They went down to 20. Like that's just insane. But and you have to believe, because if you're a fair weather player, then you would just bail, wouldn't you, at 25 grand, thinking it's going to zero. So, yeah, it's conviction, and the thing you always say is, isn't it? You buy in when you deserve it, and that's so true, isn't it? It's a harsh line, but it's interesting though that you were saying that you've had a few people like our relatives that have come in for a bit of advice. And did any of them purchase? Do you know? Have you followed it
I
up?
don't know. I haven't followed up with them because I don't like pestering people, and quite often they start triggering me with silly questions. So I have to kind of cut people off, because when I reply too often, they really start annoying me with silly little questions about exchanges and what's this, what's that, how do I add a credit card to this account or something. I'm not support for that exchange. Just figure it out. Like, you're not 5. Just do it. Like, come on. Like, I know you haven't invested before, but there's a button that says add card. Click add card, idiot. Like, come on. I'm not.
Oh yeah.
I've never added a card to this account since they freaking did all the UI. So I don't even know how to do it anymore. It's like I did this freaking 10 years ago.
It's so true. I've had the same thing. I've had someone ask me and sending me screen captures going, did you do this? Did you do that? I went, no, I didn't have to do any of that. Do you know why? Because I sent a load of my money to Estonia. You just stick it on like you do. You're sticking into an Amazon account. It's so easy now.
Yeah.
But
It was good though. We had two like new Bitcoin bros both contact me in the space of 24 hours with almost identical messages. I don't know if they were related. I think it could have been connected to their parents because they were at a party that obviously I was at. I slightly talked about Bitcoin with them in a little bit, but I wasn't pitching it. They literally just asked, "Oh, how's work or whatever?" And I just went, "Oh yeah, my app is going well." And they asked what it was. So I just went, "Oh, Bitcoin lessons," and I did not pitch them at all because I'm just like, I did not think they were even listening. So I did not pitch them at all, did not tell them to buy Bitcoin or anything. Just told them that I have a Bitcoin app, and I'm just gutted that I haven't been to Bitcoin conferences the last year, but it is what it is, you know. And maybe they went home because it seems a bit of a coincidence that both brothers hit me up like about 3 days later, within 24 hours of each other, going, "I want to buy some Bitcoin. How do I do this?" So, but yeah, hopefully they end up doing it and they get in. And at the moment they're purely in for gains. They're not ready for the full kind of orange pilling. But I've given my app, so I give them the app, and they've started going through it. And one of them anyway said, "Oh, I'm really liking the app. I've gone through the first couple of lessons, but who knows if they get further?" Because the good thing is with my app is I force you to learn about the history of money, because that is the first 4 lessons is just about the history of money. I don't even mention Bitcoin. It must be really annoying to everyone that downloads Bitcoin lessons. And in the first 4 lessons that you get for free, I haven't even spoken about it yet. You have to pay to find out what my views on Bitcoin are later. And I pretty much go, that's fine anyway, because people that what Bitcoin is freely available anyway. Go get it. The difficult stuff is the history of money, and I give you that for free. But hopefully it's a sign that loads more people are coming in. And it's still crazy. I can't believe how unsuccessful I've been with like family members, whereas I've been super successful with friends. And actually, once I say it out loud, it all completely makes sense anyway. I don't get to choose my family members. They just are who they are, right? So they're not any type of like similarity to me. I just happen to be related by blood. So when I talk to those guys, they're just all over the place with where they are politically, where they are in their life aspirations. There's like every mix in there. Whereas when I look at my friends and my close friends, I've like filtered those through a lot. Like I've met thousands of people in my life. There's probably only 10 people really that I speak to now. Obviously, those 10 are similar to me. So of course, all 10 are now Bitcoiners. Like it does actually make sense. But family members are a pain in the ass. They just don't listen.
They are indeed. That's it's very true. It's very true. It's a good way of thinking about it. Do you know what? I haven't got many friends that are into Bitcoin. You just can't. Yeah, I haven't got many friends at all that are in at all to Bitcoin, to be honest, at all. So, but then again, I probably haven't got the ability to communicate it into recent like months, if anything, about the conviction behind it, because obviously I was in it for gains.
A lot of your friends though were still from school, aren't they?
Yeah.
So like that's again, you didn't really choose a lot of them. They were just the kids in your class. Whereas I only really had anything in common with like one person in the entirety of school. So I shed them all. I didn't want to speak to any of them other than one guy, pretty much, maybe 2. And so that's where all my friends now are, from work or from other forms of my life. So I filtered through them. I just ditched them all. That's just who I am. I'm a bit of a psychopath like that. Whereas you made like strong connections with a large group of lads when you were young, and you kept that all the way through, which is why they're essentially that they go almost into the family category of it was just luck and kind of circumstance that just put you all in the same class. You could have easily been in a different class and then you never would have met them. And just there's been no like there's probably been a little bit of selection as you've fallen out with the odd person in that group, and like 1 or 2 have fallen out, but pretty much it's 90% the same, isn't it? Which is why in reality, you probably, when you really distill it down, you probably don't share a lot of life values with them, but what you do share is history and nostalgia, and that's what keeps you together.
That's a really good shout. That's a really interesting point. Yeah, because
it probably means you probably should ditch them all, come to a Bitcoin conference and make some real mates, because those people are just all not going to make it.
Well, you know what? As soon as I'm no longer working, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to Bitcoin events, and we're going to not have a hotel. We're going to have our yacht. Well, your yacht, and I clean it.
There's going to be some epic 100k parties.
Oh yeah, Yeah, okay. I bet there will be. Yeah. That was the other thing as well. I was thinking about this in the car today. I can't remember if it was your pod that said it, but unless I just thought about it. But when we hit the magic number of $100,000, I think it's going to be like a 50, 40. I'm going to go for 40% drop. That's my bold prediction. I think we'll end up this run on this number we're on now, say 40k, 42k. It's going to go up and it's going to go flying down. And when I say flying down, it's going to be 2017 times 10. Like, it's going to be horrible to witness the number change down by 40% because I think so many people will sell at that point to have their free life.
Normally whatever's predictable doesn't happen. So everyone thought that when we were going up to 10k. 10k was the big number. We blasted through 10k and went straight to 20, and then admittedly,
But look where we went though.
Yeah, we went from 20 back down to 4 in dollars. This is.
Oh yeah.
So so I think 100k. I think it looks like a big barrier. Personally, I think we're going to smash through it and go to 500, and then the correction will be back down to about 100. Whatever you think is going to happen won't, because it means you could trade that, right? Everyone's going to be waiting at 100k, going, oh, we're going to get a 40 or 50% correction here. It's going to go out down to 50 or 60k. No, if everyone's thinking that, then I can guarantee it's not happening. Like it'll either happen earlier and we'll get to 80 or 90 and do the correction then, or we'll blast through it. It'll happen at 200 or 300. And the thing is, once you go for 100, you get to 200, 300. What ends up happening is we're going to 1 million, and everyone gets super confident we're going to 1 million. That's when the correction happens. So,
well, actually, now you say that, I think the fact that I'm thinking 100k would be the correction, you're absolutely right. You're going to sell between 80 and 100 if you want to get out or get some of your money out. So it means there'll probably be real resilience around 75, 80k, won't it?
That's what people are doing now. Like 50k was a big barrier. Like 20k was a big barrier the last year. Like we smashed through 20, we've gone through 40, gone through 50. Every time we go up another 10k, we have big corrections because everyone thinks, oh, we're gonna crash at 100k, so I want to get out before the 100k. Every single person is fucking wrong. They keep selling a top, and then we go through the top. So if they didn't get back in, they were wrong. So I think every 10k up to 100, we're going to keep correcting back. And everyone thinks that's it. We're going back down to 10k now. We're not. Like, this is up only. We're just going to go up forever. So just stack sats and don't worry about it. So just buy as many as you can now, really, whilst we're below 100k. I do think, personally, I think once we get over 100k, we'll probably never see 5-figure Bitcoin again. Now it's 6-figure. Every time you talk about Bitcoin, it's going to be 100-something thousand or 200-something thousand.
It's going to be so scary to enter the Bitcoin world and trying to buy some when it is that much. Just imagine how little you're going to get. It'd be just insane, wouldn't it?
No, because that's exactly the same what's happened the last 12 years. So the price of Bitcoin.
I know that, but it's just for us now sitting here in the game. You do. It's like inflation, I guess, isn't it? But
because what else are you going to do? Just keep getting your cuck box and just having it inflate away before you, or you just go, oh right,
LFT.
I may as well have. I should have stacked more sats back in the day, but I've got my £1,000 worth of pounds coming in my wages. Fine, I can only buy 1,000 sats with that now, but it is what it is. I might as well take the sats. I don't want to keep the pounds.
Yeah. The just before we go, I just want to call Mr. Sir Neverlook out. So he's Sir Neverlook by name suggests to me he never looks at the price, right? And that's what we talk about. So, on this, you get the shitcoin lessons on Coinbase. Does he do them to get the freebie money?
Yeah.
So he definitely looks then.
Yeah. Well, I think compared to everyone else, he doesn't look. But and it's he doesn't like it. He even complains about, when I go to Coinbase to do the shitcoin lesson to get the free sats, I check the price by accident. And
okay, I'll let him off. At least he's acknowledged the fact that he looks at the price.
Yeah, and sometimes we're all shouting about all-time high, and he's like, "Oh God, Sir Neverlook actually looked today." But sometimes he genuinely does not look. Like sometimes we've gone through massive spikes and massive dips, and like someone will mention something like "what a week" or something, and he will literally go, "What do you mean?" Like he genuinely doesn't know that he is made and lost like half his net worth that week, and he genuinely doesn't know because he just doesn't like it.
Well, the other good thing about him is he's there for the millie, isn't he? He's there for the adoption. He's there for the real life, isn't he? Not the short term 5-year, 10-year gain. Because that, yeah, good, fair play to him. Fair play. Okay, I take that back. So never look. I apologize.
Yeah, you would never have got to this part in the pod anyway. Literally no one is listening right now, so it's fine.
Right. Anyway, I better go and watch the last bit of Love Island.
Fuck's sake,
I'm
mate.
joking. It's not even on.
Get back to your pod, you fucking idiot.